Is that okay? I only see a tiny picture of myself.
Actually, I didn't really know what to expect because I thought, because I've only seen you covered in paint, so.
I can't bother to do that just for an interview. Sorry.
What do you actually use for that? I always wondered.
We use just like basic theater makeup in like a bunch of different colors to make it like some black, some green, some brown, some red, and then to finish it off, we have like theater or film blood that they use in like movies, which looks really good, and we just spray it on ourselves, you know, all over. Yeah.
And on each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we do that before in the backstage. We're just like, okay, pull your hair back a bit.
Officially, we would say that you guys are celebrating your 30th anniversary, but that's not exactly right, is it? For you, it's 20 years?
Yeah, I mean, it is true because that's when the band was formed, and that's when the name came up and the first rehearsals and the logo and everything. The whole concept of FKU was formed in '87. But I mean, so many of the other members had other bands that were like a little bit more serious at the time, and so the rehearsals were like very few. I wrote a couple of songs. I wasn't in the band then because I was obviously too young. I was only like 10 years old. So it wasn't until they met me and we became friends. They said, hey, you might actually be a really good singer for this band that we have, but we haven't played for a long time.
Right.
And I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. So I mean, yeah, officially it is '87, but the band didn't become active until '97.
The 1981, your new album, are all the titles actually horror movies?
Yes.
Okay, because I wasn't sure. There were some on there that I was like, that must be some kind of a hidden cult classic that I have yet to discover.
Well, some of the movies are really cult classics that not a lot of people know about. Only the hardcore, die-hard horror freaks, like especially like Pat in the band, who's the bass player. He's a super big horror freak. So everything kind of horror-wise comes from him first. And there was actually a few of those movies that I hadn't seen before we wrote songs about them. So that was fun to revisit some old films.
But do you actually, like, to what extent do you inspire the track on the movie?
To what extent? I mean, the whole idea of the album was to, since we've always had songs that are kind of like a tribute to a certain horror film, we've always had that on our albums, like a few songs every album. And this time we just said, let's just do a whole album like that. Let's pay tribute to the year where most slasher horror films were released, and it was '81, and it's in the scene, like in the horror scene, that year is seen as kind of the ultimate year because around 200 films were released or something like that.
Do you know why that is?
I think, I mean, it was, they saw that, like with the first Halloween and like Friday the 13th and the first films were released like a year or a couple of years earlier, and they were done really cheaply, you know. They weren't big budget films, they were very low budget films, but people loved them and screaming in the cinema and everything. So I guess the movie studios kind of figured, oh, this is a great way to make money. Right. You make the movie really cheap, and then you push it out into cinemas, and a lot of people will come and see it just because it's scary. So they knew it was like a cash cow, so they just mass-produced movies, you know, the following years. Yeah.
But it's interesting because it's also kind of the first. Well, it depends on how you look at it, and there's a little discussion about it, but it's also the year where thrash was kind of born, you know, or maybe 82, or, you know, some people say 85, you know, whatever. But it's an interesting thing that it's like the year where there was a lot of horror movies, and at the same time it's kind of back to this early start of the birth of thrash, let's call it.
Yeah. I mean, for us that goes hand in hand. The films, the horror films, and the music. that like the first half of the 80s and going into the second half a little bit, and there's a lot of good stuff that was kind of the idea, to kind of like try to, I mean, of course there's the older generation that were around that rented movies and stuff in 81 and later in the 80s. They will kind of like, yeah, they will like this album because it's a little bit nostalgic. And for the younger generation, they can kind of like see, oh, holy shit, so much cool stuff was released even before I was born, you know. So we thought it was a good idea to kind of bring back the slasher genre and make it interesting in our way, I guess.
I think it's crazy interesting how it's all kind of going back there. I mean, there's a whole sort of thrash revival going on. There's all these young bands that are playing and looking like they walked straight out of the 80s. And I always used to think like, oh my God, the 80s, like that was such an embarrassing time. Like it was horrible fashion and this and that. And now, like, it's so strange to see people that are like 10 years younger than me that want to look exactly like it. And I think it's cool too now. Like, you know, you have the Stranger Things series and all this stuff going on that's making it really cool.
Yeah, I mean, the 70s have been like really cool for a long time, and now but I agree. We always thought like the 80s will never be popular again because all the clothes were ugly and the hairstyles and everything was just butt ugly. It's not gonna come back. But enough time passes and it's cool again. Yeah. It's inevitable. It happens all the time, you know. It just needs to be a long enough gap.
Right. At some point you're gonna be so like if we do something early 90s like Euro thrash techno, it'll come back. Or maybe it already is coming back. Actually, maybe I should.
The '90s will be huge soon, I guess.
But it is. I'm very impressed by the power and the energy and the kind of the speed of that whole album. Like, how do you even get pumped up like that, to perform like that, to put it down like that?
You get a young athletic drummer.
Yeah, you have a new drummer, right?
But I mean, we said that we wanted to. I mean, we like all our old albums, the previous albums. We love them, but this time we just felt like we don't want to do another mid-tempo song. We want all the songs to have an energy to it, and it needs to sound like a little bit dangerous. Like you can almost play the riffs, and you can almost like just barely keep up, you know. That's what we kind of wanted. We wanted that energy, and that's we decided that from the get-go. If a song was too long or if a song was boring, we just just put it away and just write something else.
Okay.
So we had that idea that we just wanted it to be like very intense. And I mean, we're rehearsing. We're actually at the rehearsal studio right now. The other guys are rehearsing in the next room, and we're playing through all these songs because we're going to play them live soon, and we're kind of like, whew, we have to work hard. You know?
You're like, shit, we didn't think about that in advance.
Yeah, but it's sounding good. It's sounding good. You just need, I mean, the first rehearsal when you've been off playing for a while, you kind of suck. You're like, how is this going to work? But then the next couple of days, you're like, yeah, there it is. It's like, what do you say? You get back up on the horse, or like riding a bike. You just like, you remember it, you know, and it works out. So
which would be your favorite horror movie if you have to pick one of the titles?
Mine is the original first Evil Dead, which is from 81, because that is like the first film that I saw when I was really young that was like a horror movie that really scared me. So I love that movie. I love the whole vibe of it, and I love that it's so cheaply made, but it's so awesome. And it was a little bit. It's like the most serious of the films. It's a bit funny, but it's a bit more serious. I mean, the second one, and then then it totally became like just like a comedy adventure later on, like with Army of Darkness and stuff. But the first one, I absolutely love that film. So that's my favorite. It will always be my favorite horror movie.
And were you able to, did you give that track a little more attention?
Well, no, not really, because here's the fun thing. I was like, we have to do Evil Dead. And then we talked a little bit, and we were like, but actually Death made a song called Evil Dead and about that movie on their first album, Scream Bloody Gore. And we were like, why should we write our own? Let's just cover their song as well. So we're just perfect. Then we have a cover that we all like on the album. So, I mean, it worked out perfectly, and we didn't have to write a song because it was already there. So.
And was that hard? I mean, I can imagine covering a Death song.
Yeah, but the old songs, I mean, this was way in the beginning of Death. And they were like, they're really basic. There's like 2 riffs in the whole song. Yeah. They're way more simple than our new songs. And they're really thrash. It's easy to play those old songs thrashy because Death wasn't something, I mean, the death metal genre had barely even been born back then.
Yeah.
So, it totally works as a thrash song.
Yeah, that's so interesting though. So you guys took a death metal song, made it into a thrash song.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to take a better listen and compare those two.
Inside a life which is not yours, spat within, causing terror, fear, and darkness.
When I listen to the FKU records, I think your vocals are very impressive and very varied. Like you have a very diverse voice.
Thank you.
I wonder where you got your kind of examples from, or if it didn't work out that way, and you just kind of started singing and only later. How did you come into your own as a vocalist? I'll ask it that way.
Yeah, I've always sung. I guess my mom was sang in choir and played the piano at home and stuff. So singing was natural for me. It wasn't something that I felt like, oh, I shouldn't sing, you know. So I sang a lot when I was a kid, and I did like performances in kindergarten and stuff like that. So when it came to the time when you started to form your first bands, I was totally okay with singing. Nobody else wanted to sing, and I said, well, I can sing. So I've always...
Sorry to interrupt you, but so you come from a very musical family?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, there was always music playing at home, so it wasn't. Music was very close. It was more of a question that what should I play musically? Because I of course needed. I mean, my sister played the piano, and I was like, yeah, what should be my thing? And I started with like guitar and singing. So that was always around. And then later in life, I just tried to fit my vocals to the music that I was singing. And I have so many influences vocally, singers that I love. Yeah. And I mean, it's a mix between all the classic heavy metal singers like Dickinson and Dio and everybody.
Can I say who you remind me a little bit of Bobby Blitz?
Sure, overkill? I agree. I agree.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great one of my favorite thrash singers. It's Bobby Blitz. It's Old Bailoff and Steve Sousa from Exodus. Sure. It's Russ Anderson from Forbidden. It's basically all of these classic singers. Right. And when we started writing FKU songs, it was like, this song sounds a bit like that band, and this song sounds a bit like this band. So I always try to fit my vocals, kind of not imitating, but kind of trying to push it in the same direction as those, right, which kind of made me kind of varied, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like you tried to fit it into the space where the song was kind of working. But that's, I mean, that's a talent. Not everyone can do that, you know.
Thank you, but I've always wanted to see what I could do with the vocals. I've done a lot of like totally clean singing as well, and I do a lot of like growling and screaming in my other band Darkane, and a lot of people say your vocals sound so different from in FKU versus Darkane, and I say yeah, but they're different bands. Right. Why should I sound the same? And come to think of it, not many singers actually do that. So when I thought about it, I felt a bit weird that maybe people will think it's weird that I sound different in two different bands, but I don't care.
No, you shouldn't. Good for you. You shouldn't care. Just one more thing that I think is maybe I don't know if it's a misconception about the band or not, but it looks very much like it's aimed at kind of being funny and fun, and just kind of also for the live experience, because moshing seems to be so important for you guys. So is that I mean, the name as well, the Freddy Krueger's underwear.
we don't want to be seen as a funny joke band. We're 100% deadly serious with what we do, but we don't want to be like all serious all the time. We could never have like a black metal band. That would never work, because we have too much fun and we like to laugh and we like to celebrate the things that we feel are funny. I mean, a lot of the horror movies, old movies, they're more funny than they are scary, actually. Right. I mean, yeah, we're a metal band, but who decided that metal bands need to be like all the time, you know, and super tough? We laugh on stage. We like to have fun, you know. We're not a joke band, but we like to have fun. I don't know what to say.
So what are the plans now with the band? When are you playing, and what else should I know about that?
We don't have the whole next year planned, but what we want to do is obviously play live as much as possible, and we're starting off with a lot of shows in Sweden, because believe it or not, we actually go down quite well in Sweden, and so we're doing like a club tour, and then we're doing a bunch of huge festivals, like the biggest metal festivals here, like Sweden Rock Festival and all those, and but we're working on. We don't yet have a booking agent for Europe, so we are looking into that now, because we want to come and tour, because there's so many countries in Europe that we haven't played yet. I mean, we've never played in Germany. It's weird, and we've never played in France. So that's kind of on the agenda. But in the meantime, I think you guys should pick up like maybe like one of these, maybe, or if you're like me, like one of these.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah.
I love the album cover, by the way. Show the album cover again. Show us the cover. I love it. And then an original soundtrack. Yeah, we kind of wanted it to be to have the VHS old horror movie look, but then it was kind of weird because like a VHS is like that, you know, and this is totally square. What we're gonna do? Okay, let's pretend it's the soundtrack to a horror movie. Right. So that's kind of what we thought. So. Well, it looks great. It sounds great. And you guys are gonna get it all in your fingers and practice and rehearse and bring it on over to the whole of Europe, because I think it's gonna be quite an experience to see you guys live. How would you describe an FKU show in a couple words? I think it's just, I mean, especially now with these new songs, we played in Japan just a couple of weeks ago, and it was like really intense, and I was like, I need to do some cardio, you know. We like to keep it intense. We don't like to stand still and just be boring, and looking at the audience, they're thrashing out, and then they're smiling as well, and that's what we want. We want it to be, we can finish with a famous quote from Exodus. It's actually, and that's what FKU is all about. It's good, friendly, violent fun. Before we say goodbye, let me just you can say hi to the other guys. Yeah, that would be great. Say hi. Hi. Hello. Working hard, I see. Yeah. Yes. Awesome. All right, I just wanted to show you that. Oh, that's lovely. Guys. Okay, guys, the best of luck, and thank you so much for your time, okay? I'll send it over when it's done. Yeah, please do. Thank you. It was a lot of fun. Thanks. Will do. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.